Val Nelson, welcome to the Gentle Rebel podcast. It's so good to have you with me. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we just start with a little bit about your story and, maybe some of the waypoints on the journey that have led you to describe yourself as the Black Swan coach. I'd love to know, what that means and how you landed there. That'd be great.
Hey, thanks for asking about that. Well, mostly the simple description of what I do, and then it'll make more sense, is I'm a career and business coach for introverts and highly sensitive people. And so early on, before I knew about my specialty with introverts and highly sensitive people, this was before I even started a business. I saw a black swan for the first time, and I didn't even know such a thing existed. I was always a fan of swans, and where I live in the world, swans are always white. I realize now that's not true in other parts, but so when I saw a swan, something that looked like a swan, but it was black, I was very riveted to it. I just thought, all it's doing is sitting there on this pond quietly and not even doing anything, but I couldn't stop paying attention to it. And I then found out there is such a thing as a black swan. And so fast forward, I was making a business card for a fledgling business. Didn't even know exactly what it was going to be yet, but I needed a card. And I was like, I don't know, add a black swan to it. Because that image was still staying with me, and I didn't even fully understand why. I understand now. But pretty soon I realized that I really wanted to specialize in introverts and highly sensitive people. This was 15 years ago now. And I realized that black swan actually was a great symbol for us, because it's kind of that, kind of like the black sheep, image of like, you don't fit in, you don't fit the norm of the white swan, but you're still amazing as is. And I kind of wanted to emphasize, you're amazing as is, being your unique self. You don't have to pretend to be something else. You don't have to pretend to be a white swan to fit in, which is what a lot of introverts and highly sensitive people are doing. We're putting on an extrovert mask, for instance, or hiding the parts of us that are highly sensitive. But actually, the way we can have the biggest impact, and I think we all want to make a difference, we want to have an impact, is to be our unique selves. Just like that black swan had the big impact by being itself and by being unique. So that's the story. And I didn't even call myself a black swan coach. I had it on my business card and in my logo on my website, and people just kept calling me the black swan coach because that was the part they could remember. They liked that story. They liked that image. And so I thought, let me just embrace what people call me, the black swan coach. So that's my long story for the black swan coach.
That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that. I guess that whole thing of listening to what people are telling you about who you are and about how you're
like telling a story.
I
noticed people responded and felt like at ease, like at the time it was a big revolutionary thought to not have to try to pretend you're an extrovert. Now more and more people have learned that introversion is not a problem, that you can work with that. It's actually just a thing like being left-handed or right-handed, and we just got to work with it.
Yeah.
So, but at the time, that was just radical to embrace it as a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so when we were kind of originally speaking and trying to figure out, like, what could we focus on in this conversation and kind of build a podcast around, you had, I think, just recently sent out a newsletter to your mailing list, looking at the topic of sort of shame attacks and what you describe as comparisonitis.
Yeah.
And this really speaks to something that feels very alive for me and alive in a lot of the people that I kind of work with and speak to. And it just felt like a really good thing for us to get into, you know, this idea of shame attack. So, yeah, could you maybe sort of expand what that means? You know, what is a shame attack? What's it look like? And yeah, why do they arise in your experience?
Well, it's part of just how the brain works. It's very, you know, it's built with fear as a survival mechanism. And so anything new, this old lizard part of the brain, which is back here at brainstem, that part wants to keep us safe. It's determined to keep us safe. And it's suspicious of anything new. So anytime we try to do something new, start a new business, even consider a new career path, make some new art, it just goes, hold up, wait a minute, this is new, might be scary, might be a tiger around the corner. It's a survival thing. And so it's not like something's broken in you that you have fear of any kind, and shame attack is just like an intense fear moment related to I'm not good enough. So it's just like that. Everybody has these kinds of things. And the comparison part is it's a survival instinct to want to fit in, because that is a survival thing. We're pack animals. We need each other to survive. And so to not fit in is a panic kind of a thing. So, oh my God, what will people think? That's the thought that comes with shame attacks and many types of fears. So that's what it's like. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, and it's a survival level panic in the body, potentially, when it gets out of control. That's how I see it. That's how I've learned. And that's how it feels to me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I've definitely recognized. Are you aware of like what it feels like when there's one maybe kind of brewing?
Brewing. Well, I'll give an example, but basically it starts with some negative self-talk, like, or a little bit of, you know, like kind of a little tension rising in the body, and it can start to snowball. It's got a snowball effect often if we're not nipping it in the bud with hold up, like, I don't need to listen to that voice, you know, and kind of fight it with a more positive part. Go, wait a minute, in which I'm sure we'll get into some of the things that help. But I had part of what prompted that newsletter that you were talking about shame attacks is it had just happened to me in a pretty intense way, and then the conversation just kept coming up with my clients, and it was like the theme in two of my groups that month, and it's so big, and I realized we just need to talk about it head on. You know, I talk about fear all the time with my clients, but like, let's have it as the topic, like front and center. It's so big. For me, what happened that kicked it up recently was I'm newly in a mastermind group that's led by another business coach who I just adore. I think she's so wonderful, and it's so exciting to be in her world and to have somebody mentoring me. And because I'm usually in the mentoring seat, and so it's just so nice to receive. Yeah. And I was just having one of those days of like, she is amazing. And I thought, oh my God, why would anybody come to me? They should just all go to her, you know, because she does it this way and I don't do it that way. I don't have that skill that she has or that strength. So it started to snowball, and that part of the brain starting to panic because how's this going to work? How am I going to still have a business? It just continued to snowball, and it lasted for a couple of hours, which is a long time for feeling stressed. Luckily, it was only 2 hours instead of 2 days or 2 weeks, because that can happen for sure. But luckily, it was just 2 hours, but still 2 hours of a lot of discomfort. Yeah. And because it went down the whole snowball of I'm going to lose my business, or I'm going to have to become someone I'm not, and that's going to be terrible. I'm going to whatever. It was like, I'm going to have to blah, 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 blah. You know, it just went. And, you know, to survival, like I'm going to lose my whole business and my income, and what am I going to live on? was pretty bad. And I really couldn't see my way out of it right away. So I'm about to see a dog in the background.
Oh, great.
I think it's okay. So luckily, what happened that helped me was humor. So I was on LinkedIn, and there was this little cartoon of a crayon and a pencil looking at each other, and they had these thought bubbles. And the crayon was looking at the pencil going, I'm not sharp enough. And the pencil was looking at the crayon going, I'm not colorful enough. I realized, oh, I'm a crayon and she's a pencil. I get to just be a crayon. And so I just was able to laugh, and I had this relief from that simple image of just me, she's her, and we both have something to offer. I was like, whew, business saved. So humor is so helpful.
It really is, yeah. And you mentioned that, even with the words that you use of the comparisonitis and comparanoia is the other one that you
right.
use.
Someone gave that to me. I must somehow someone gave me the word comparisonitis years and years ago, so I've been kind of using that. I love using funny words or any kind of humor. It really helps to dispel things from me when there's a funny word for it, like, oh, that's my comparisonitis thoughts,
Yeah.
It's easy for it to deflate when there's a funny word. And then someone said, that I call it comparanoia. And I was like, that's perfect too. Like, all these horrible things are going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I really like that because there is the other side of, that natural drive that we have to compare ourselves in a healthy way with other people, and so where I'm intrigued as to the role that maybe some of our collective values might play, and the way that society values and hierarchically positions things and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. When
it comes to how then we hold comparison, do we hold it through a competitive lens or a zero-sum lens of, okay, if they're better than me, which it feels like they are, then I have nothing. They have everything, I have nothing.
Right.
Or
it's very black and white.
Exactly.
You're stuck in an old, lizard brain if it's very black and white.
Yeah. Or is it a more collaborative spirit that we hold that comparison, and it's like, oh yeah, I like what they're doing, I'd like to try a bit of that, or they're doing something different, but actually I like what I'm doing, and I can feel that this is more aligned with who I am and what I want to, and you don't take it personally.
I know. And something that helps me in business is, instead of like that word, when people often say, well, check out your competitors and see what they're doing. I'm like, I don't even relate to that word anymore. I think niche mate. I don't see anyone as a competitor. I mean, I suppose you could think about it that way. But again, changing the word is really helpful. Niche mate. Oh, they're in the same niche, and they can be someone to talk to that I would probably enjoy talking to. And we might help each other think of things, and we might refer to each other because we're unique people, and that's that again, embracing like your uniqueness, your crayon, a pencil, or something else.
And as you say, there's then opportunities to work together, because everybody has different strengths and different weaknesses, and actually you can work together in that. I find that language around competitors, even from the perspective of being considered a competitor by somebody else, I find that a little bit like,
I know. I feel sad about that.
Yeah, I don't want to be someone's competitor.
Right.
I don't want somebody to look at me and think, he's my competition. I want them to look at me and think, I'll reach out and work together, or
let's connect.
Exactly.
I enjoy hearing from niche mates, and sometimes I'll have a client who decides they want to be a coach, and even decides they might want to specialize in HSPs, and I'm like, that's awesome, because it's needed. There's actually more coaches needed, and more people who understand highly sensitive people needed. So
yeah, definitely. And I think with coaches as well, it's because you're kind of partnership and relationship building with clients, like everybody has different ideal clients from just a rapport perspective, or the connection that you have. So it's like, actually it's great to then have people that you can think, I don't think I'm the best fit for you, but I know Val and I would recommend getting in touch with her. I'll put you in contact with her and say that I think you'd be ideal. So that builds trust, somebody, like, it builds an ecosystem on one level, and it builds trust on the part of the client, because it's like, that person didn't just take me on for the sake of it. And then if anybody that they then know is looking for a coach and it might be a better fit, it's like, oh yeah, I trust this guy because he didn't take me on. So it's that like long-term maybe perspective on things, which is difficult to measure as well when you're looking at metrics and all of that sort of side of business.
True. It's about embracing abundance, and
there's enough.
There's enough. Is how nature helps me. I'm sitting in front of this forest.
That's beautiful.
And just spending time out in the woods reminds me there's more than enough. I mean, look at just right there. There's like so many trees and so many leaves, and it's just regular reminder of that's what's natural. And that's what helps me with things like this too. This is related, shame attacks and fear is also related to that scarcity mind, or that, there's not enough kind of feeling.
Definitely. Yeah. So it feels like there's kind of two sides to this equation of the shame attacks and comparisonitis, paranoia. And you've got you said at the beginning, if you're starting something new, or you're thinking about getting into something new, sharing something that you've not shared before, then that sort of fear instinct kicks in, and it's like, oh dear, I'm not good enough, etc. And then there's like you described, your shame attack. There's the thing that you do, and the thing you've been doing for a while, and you maybe see somebody else who's doing something similar but in a completely different way, and then you feel like, I'm doing it all wrong, or they're so much better. And so maybe it would be worth kind of digging into both sides of those a little bit. There's so many thoughts just arising in me when I'm thinking about things like music and art and creativity, and coming up with something new that you're sharing. On the one hand, there's always something that is nagging there, saying, "Oh, this isn't that good."
Gosh.
And then there's there is that other part of seeing other musicians or seeing other people doing things and being like, "That's how you do it properly. They're doing it properly." So I don't know. How do you begin to befriend those thoughts on that first bit when
it first starts to come up? Anytime I start to feel myself go into it, like that closing in, scarcity mind, lizard brain, sometimes you just got to take a break, like a breather, so that I can then remember, okay, what other tools do I have here? And I love the number 3 to help me, because I can remember 3 things. So the 3 things I turn to for this. The first one is break it into smaller steps. Like, what's the easy thing I can do just to dip a toe in that cold water? So smaller steps. And then I even just thinking of, okay, a little thing, like maybe I'll just make a phone call or start that email or whatever. So that's the first one. The second one is support. So could be picking up the phone to talk to a loving friend, or Or instead of doing that workshop by myself, I'll get someone who will assist me in some way so I don't have to like do all the moving parts at the same time. And then my, everything goes down. All my anxiety goes down. And the third one is if I can tap into the big why or the passion or the purpose, the sense of purpose, like, oh, this isn't about me and what people will think of me. This is about service. This is about what people need. And let me just focus on that. It's about serving. And again, all three of those things can bring that stress level down for me and can get me back into step by step. So one way I do the support is just co-working. And I did that from the very beginning with my business because I would just get so frozen. There was too much newness, too much I was afraid of. I was still sure the business would never work. It can feel like that for a couple of years or more. And just so hard in the beginning of a business. It is just raw nerves, it feels like. Gotta get a lot of support and a lot of tuning into purpose and a lot of little steps. So yeah, I would do co-working as a first tool because I didn't have to pay anything. I would just be like, can I come work at your house? I'll set up at your dining room table while you're in your office. And already half the stress was gone and my brain just worked better. So I still do that. Every week I host co-working for my clients and I get more done then and they do too. And so, yeah, that gives you a sense. Those are my three go-tos.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think it's that connection part is so important. Just, I think so often shame probably amplifies the more isolated we become. But the instinct that kicks in when you are starting to spiral into shame is, nobody, I can't tell anybody about this, or I need to fix this on my own, or it's to withdraw. So it's to move away from the very thing that is actually going to bring it to an end.
I'm so glad you're saying that. I've discovered that when we're under stress, we tend to, our first instinct is to go do the opposite of what's going to be helpful. Like if I know talking to someone or being around people is going to help, I might isolate. Or if I know going out and being in nature is going to help, I'll stay indoors and not let myself go out. It's weird. It's like this weird closing in thing. And so it's been critical for me to have people in my life who I can even be around in my shame moments. Yeah. My spouse is that for me, and I have some good friends like that. And I feel so lucky. That is like one of the biggest areas of abundance that I have. It's people I can be around in those hard moments. So sometimes I need that in order to just get my head on straight.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Same for me. Like it's the first port of call really is that coming home to a place of you are accepted and you're acceptable just as you are, regardless of anything that you have or haven't done. And just to then go from there in terms of because if I start trying to find those actions to do, I might find the wrong ones, because it will be I'm trying to solve the problem of this shame or trying to eradicate it and not move forwards from within that better sense of energy and spirit and whatever it is. Yeah.
I think you're hitting on something important there. Trying to get rid of it, I think it's part of the problem. It's like, it's bad, it's something wrong, it's got to push it away or hide it, right? And really, it's so natural. And the way out is to see it and not see it as a weakness, but as a human thing. And to work with it. It's like I heard a fellow coach in the beginning of her business say, just take the fear along with you. And that nails it. It's like, you can't wait until the fear is gone. Fear will never go away. It will lessen when we face the thing, but it will not go away.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to what you saying earlier as well about, I guess, using that play and humour and naming the thing, kind of giving it a, oh, that's just the comparisonitis voice, and it can put it into a box or put it somewhere that it's like, it's definable and it's small. It's not all encompassing. It's this thing here. Yeah.
Otherwise, we think it's us.
Yeah.
And really, like I said, that's why I keep pointing out it's a lizard brain. It's part of your brain, but it's not all of you. It's not your whole identity to feel like this bad person or whatever. You know, sometimes I'll hear people say, I always do that, or I'm so whatever. And I try to, you know, encourage them to catch those kinds of identifying with it as a thing. Like it's just an experience, a temporary experience. It's not who you are. We're a lot more connected to like what's the prefrontal cortex, our more thinking mind, it's got logic, and it can take in that part from the lizard brain, the survival instinct, and go, is that a tiger around the corner, or is it just, this is new? Like, okay, you know, and I can use my tools and I can move forward anyway and do the things to calm ourselves, you know, whatever your methods are, a few deep breaths or whatever you need.
Yeah, that's great. Feel calm right now. It's nice.
What'd you say? You feel calmer?
Feel calm just talking about this. Yeah.
That's great.
At the end of your newsletter, you shared a practical exercise or a couple of questions, which, I guess to get people maybe thinking about this stuff and naming it and working through it as well, which were, when has a not good enough or vulnerability attack shown up for you lately? And what's one thing that helps in these moments or that might help? And I was just interested to maybe explore those questions, maybe us now, and also to kind of think about how to approach those questions.
Now, I specifically chose those two questions because everyone's already doing something that's helpful, and if we look to our own experience of what do you already turn to that's helpful, you can turn up the dial on the bright spots. Basically, that's the secret to being a coach. I go, okay, when have you already done that? I help them find their own answers through looking at their own experiences of what works. So that's what that was about. But let's try it.
Cool.
You want to do it?
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking about, when I've had a shame attack. There was a recently or moderately recently. It's a good example of a shame attack followed by I'm learning how to move through these in a more productive way for myself. So I had an email from, it was like a legal email saying that I owed 350 euros for licensing a picture. And I was like, looking at it, I was like, no, I don't. And then it transpired that it was an image that I'd used on a blog post, using Canva. I mean, there's all sorts of issues in this, but I'd used Canva and not realizing that the pro Canva license didn't entitle me to use the image that was apparently included in the, which is going to be news for some people, I think.
Yes. Wow.
Yes. So some of the pro licenses, you have to have made all sorts of adjustments and give it what would constitute a design element to it so that it's not the original image.
Wow. Okay.
So I'd used this photo, or this, I guess it was a piece of art, just like on a blog post. And that, I think that realization, so I got in touch with Canva. I was like, I think there's been a mistake. Like I've used it because I've used Canva, and then got a reply from them saying, oh no, that if you look at the small print, that you've used that not under the agreement, and so we'd recommend you get legal advice. Like, this isn't our fault. So, and then the email signed off like, let us know if there's anything else we can help you with today. Thank you so much, etc. And I was like, oh, throttle you.
Wow.
But yeah, I then sort of felt this, because then I sort of went through these layers of the small print, and you have to, it's page after page. You go in and it's like, yeah, it's all there. And I just felt this real sense of shame and embarrassment. And at a rational level, I was like, yes, there's reasons that you've made this mistake. But at that very visceral body level, I was like, I'm an idiot. Like, I've ruined, like, this is so stupid. How could you be so stupid? And yeah, it was, how you go into sort of a tunnel vision, your head fills up with, like, I think for me, that's the physical signs of a shame attack are like, yeah, head pounding, and you're like, oh. But then I was like, I need to verbalize this and tell people about it. I can't just harbor it myself, which is something in the past I would have done. I'd have been like, I need to sort this out and not let anybody know, because this is, I'm a failure. Like, it's that, like you said earlier, that all-encompassing, like, I am.
Yeah, that I am.
Such a failure. I'm such an idiot. Yeah. So that was a shame attack for me.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was the connection that then really, like, it didn't solve the practical problems. Like, I was like, oh, we're going to have to pay this because, you can't fight with, it was like it was a German law firm that had sent this message. And the other thing that I noticed that was really interesting was, and there was a truth to it, but it was like one of my immediate reactions was, that was a stupid image anyway. I hated that. Like, I only chose it because it was like, that'll do. Which was kind of true, but I really like homed in on that.
So it made you more mad.
Yeah.
What a waste.
I got defensive, and, it's like, I want to email, I want to find out who did it, whose image it is, and tell them it's not even any good.
Oh my gosh. It's right. We do these funny things, like attacking back or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
What ultimately was what helped you relax again?
I think, the moment that I made the decision to pay it was because there was this big antagonism in me before that. It was like, I need to solve this, not in that way. So there was a piece about that. It was like, okay, just let's kind of close the door on the issue itself, so that then I can do the internal processing. And actually, there was a difference between that the practical parts of addressing the issue, and then that the follow up in inner stuff that has to, the healing of that has to happen.
But it sounded like even that dissipated by the sort of naming and owning and taking responsibility, even if it felt unfair. It was like, oh, well, just cleaning it up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. Taking responsibility, even like without fully needing to take the blame, or for it not, as you say, it doesn't feel fair, but I'm taking responsibility for my response to this. And I know that this is what's going to bring me to a place of peace, I think, ultimately, or it did lead to that. And then just naming it with other people. So just a couple of other people that I was able to talk about it to. And we could laugh about it as well. Like, there was then the opportunity to just let rip a little bit with some humour. And
Humor.
it just cannot be understated how important humour is.
It can't. Yeah, you're right. It's incredible. Yeah. And, that can come from lots of things. It doesn't have to be a joke or funny word or whatever. It can come from just like put on some music and start dancing and you just smile, It's like just play somehow. Shifts. Yeah.
Just kind of releases it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Should I share one?
Yeah.
So I know I already told the recent one, but there's one that's even more recent. Wasn't too bad, but it was very uncomfortable. I've started this new thing where once a month, I use that weekly co-working time to lead a goal setting practice each month. So we really take time to look at, okay, what's been upstream, feeling too hard, and where are things flowing well. And I love the idea, and it's a practice that I have led clients through, and I do it for myself regularly. But doing it in a larger group was new this year. Doing this sort of workshop-y thing, this goal-setting workshop. And so I was still working out my structures for it and leading. I'm not someone who loves. I have a lot of experience leading workshops, and I think I do a good job. But I don't love that role. It's like too many things going on, like managing the chat and checking the agenda and the time and the who's talking and da da da. Too many moving parts, and it doesn't feel like it's in my strength zone in that way, like the Zoom thing and stuff. But it's fine. But something about the structure I used last month in April it just was not flowing well. And by the end of the meeting, I was just feeling like, oh man, oh no, I've been putting a lot of energy into this project to make this work well, but it is not feeling good. And I've made this program that's not, how am I going to keep going? It started to spiral. And it was like, okay, first breathe, take a break. At least it's over for today. So it was first just breathe, take a break. And then I realized, okay, this is just a sign that I need to address it in some way. It doesn't mean I have to throw the baby out the bathwater. Let me just find another way of doing it that builds on my strengths instead of trying to push. So that's often a go-to for me too. Like, where can I come back to my own natural strengths? So I thought, and I also went to the support. So I decided to ask a couple of people. I ended up asking 3 people who had attended that day for feedback. Like, how did it go for you? And what would have made it even better? And what do you think of me changing it in this way? How would that feel? So basically got co-creative about improving it with the people who were there. And wow, that was super helpful. So that support. And I also heard from them that they really like it and they want, but these few tweaks would be great. But to hear that it was serving a need, that really, really was the biggest thing. Like, I really want to keep going with this, and I need to make it better for me too. And I came up with a couple of things that I'm really excited about. And I was able to apply that to the one in May this month. And it did feel a lot better. And now I have another tweak. So the one in June, I think, is going to be even better. So I was basically letting in some hope. And I felt calmer. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Like, just pushing, the old me would just push and think, oh, I got to make this work. It's like muscle through. But now I'm like, no, there's bound to be a way that has a more downstream flow. And I get determined to find it. I feel like it's one of my strengths, is like, where's the downstream? And let's go in that direction. That's what I love helping other people with too.
Yeah. And that co-creating with getting that feedback, asking other people. Is that something that's new for you, or have you always been maybe drawn towards that sort of thing?
Not new, but new in the last, so probably like the last 10 years, I've really been embracing the co-creating and being so freed up by that. Because I think shame and got to do it myself, definitely lived most of my life with a strong independence streak, and it really has not served me well when I do that. And so the more I open up to feedback and, hey, help me make this even better for all of us, man, life is so much better like that. So yeah, I love the word co-create. It's one of my favorite words now, but yeah, used to have to be all me or it didn't count somehow.
Yeah. I think, and sometimes just those conversations highlight the fact that there is nothing wrong. It's just maybe something's triggered in you during that session, and you just feel like, this has gone terribly. And then when you then do that, reaching out and getting that feedback, it's like, oh no, that was an amazing session. I really loved it. And obviously there's the element of, if that's happening for you every time, there's a sign that, okay, something needs to change for your own enjoyment of those workshops. Yeah. But sometimes it can just be, I remember when I was first training, doing my coaching training, and there were several times where on both sides of the equation, I would feel like a coaching session had gone really badly, and then I'd get feedback from the coaching client, and they would be like, oh, that was really amazingly helpful.
So funny.
And then on the flip side, there'd be times where I'd be like, oh, that was an amazing session. And then sort of getting the feedback is like, oh, they haven't taken that much from this. And what I started to realize was, because I was sort of training to models and formulas, my assessment of a good session was, I've gone through the formula really well, and so I've hit all of the competencies, and I could get all these ticks in what the assessors are looking out for. But actually, I've missed the connection with the client. And there'd be other ones where it feels like, I was sort of holding on by my fingertips, trying to hold this session together. But actually that was because it was being really client-led, and it was going to the places that they really needed it to go to and wanted it to go to. And it ended up being super helpful to them. And that was a really important learning curve for me, in terms of, then just getting that feedback. But when it comes to hearing that scenario with the workshop, I was like, when I get that feeling after something like that, my instinct is, right, you've just got to change everything. And I don't go to the gathering feedback in that situation. I just change everything. And then I'll hear from people like, why have you changed it? I'm like, I didn't feel like it was going very well. It was great. Oh yeah. Whoops.
It's so funny. But I do think we got to look for what works for them and for us at the same time. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. Those things.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I don't know that we'd really define shame. And I think it's important to describe, it's something like shame when it's like it's an I am statement. I am wrong. I am not enough. I'm always wrong at this, or bad at this, or something. So it's like an identification with it, which is, like we were talking about. But that is what shame sounds like. I am, or I'm never, which is I am.
Yeah. Exactly. I am never. Yeah.
And something that also helps me is this acronym for shame is should have already mastered everything. And again, makes me laugh when I hear that, because of course I couldn't have already mastered everything, but that's what it feels like. I'm wrong at this. I'm bad at this. Well, I have not mastered everything. It's okay to still be learning or to just
Yes.
not be good at that particular thing. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose that crossover between perfectionism and shame
Yes.
is quite big there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had a big dose of that.
And do you see any of these things really being particularly prevalent for introverts and highly sensitive people? Like, is this something that we deal with in a more exaggerated sense?
I haven't done any research or looked at research around that, but it makes sense to me that yes, we are more vulnerable to perfectionism and getting caught in overthinking, which can lead to, because it's the letting thoughts run away and making all these connections. If this and then that and the da 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 da. So then I think we might be more prone to anxiety and shame attacks and things because of that potential for overthinking. Because in both cases, introverts and highly sensitive people really are good at deep thinking, which is a lovely skill, but any skill or strength can be overdone and can run away into the negative side of it. And that's true for any strength at all. So yeah, I think we might be a little more prone. There were some studies that were talked about for a little while about introverts being more prone to not being as happy. There were these happiness studies that extroverts tended to be happier. And I think that's kind of a wrong connection about happier, because I think they were using the word happy in a very extroverted definition of happy. So I suspected those, but I think they're also pointing to potentially, maybe, I didn't look deeply at these studies, but they might have been pointing to what I'm talking about, like a little more prone to this overthinking, which can lead to anxiety. But it doesn't have to. That's just, like I said, everyone's got their Achilles heel, and with more consciousness about what introversion is and how to work with our strengths can become more moderated the more conscious we become about them.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. It's that overthinking piece. I was just thinking, as soon as we finish this, I'm going to be like, I shouldn't have said that stuff.
Of course, me too. But then I bet we can go, oh well, at the same time.
Yeah,
right.
I think so. And it's again, that's something that I've learned is those things where I'm like, not always, but generally, if I'm feeling that I shouldn't have said that, that's usually the thing that, if I then have the courage to publish it, will be what people are like, yeah,
it's like their really favorite moment.
Yeah.
The one that we think is the wrong one.
Exactly.
Isn't that funny? I think it's that vulnerability. Like when you see a leader that you would never expect to cry on stage, when that's the most memorable part, when they teared up about something, you're like, wow, like it hits you. And that vulnerability is actually the perfect thing.
Yeah. And that speaks again to that whole thing of like the thing that you want to move away from is the thing that actually connects. It's the thing, it's that humanness. Like it's and the shame might be, oh, I shouldn't have said that, because it's the right thing to say. Like there can be that side of the shame. It's like I've got this resistance to this thing that I regret having let slip out of my mouth or whatever. But at some level, that's because it connects at the human level, and somebody will hear that and be like, yeah, that's real. There's
you're just reminding me, maybe this could be a note to end on, but I was at the beginning of this year, I decided I need to be more vulnerable in my newsletters and my blog and stuff, because I think it could be so easy to fall into the, here's step 1, 2, 3 for blah, 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 and not really talk about my own areas of vulnerability and or my own personal stuff. And so I sort of set an intention to just bring it to more personal and more vulnerable. And I'm not perfect at it at all, but I've been leaning in that direction. The perfectionist in me hates that, but I'm trying to do it anyway, one step at a time. And anytime I've done that throughout the course of my business, those are the most popular newsletters and blogs. I get the most positive comments. And you would think that people would go, oh, she's not perfect, therefore I can't trust her. But it actually builds trust, and it feels better. It's just more authentic, right? So I started doing that, and I noticed, and that's partly how that shame attack newsletter came out. It came out of, let me just share what just happened, and which was hard. And then once I started, it was like, oh, this is good. It's good. I'm just saying it. People will relate. Ever since, this whole year, I've been doing that, and people I've gotten way more responses to my emails. Like, I don't know what happened, but your newsletter's just gotten so much better lately.
Really? Yeah.
So I keep hearing things like that. So it's, we get nudged on when we're going in the right direction. So it helps. It helps.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Such I think a great point to end on that, because the perfectionism, it can feel like, I need to be perfect in order for people to take me seriously, or for people to trust that I know what I'm talking about. And actually that stuff can just be a mask or a wall that stands in between us.
Yeah, it gets in the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I remember a woman, someone who I hadn't seen in years, she was like, oh, you're a coach now. Gosh, you must be all together. And I was like, no. So that it fed that part of me that thinks I should be, but nope.
And I think there's something in that, the sort of labels and the roles that we play. It's like, well, how should I be if people are going to take me seriously, or if people are going to believe that I am that, things like that.
Right. And so then I have to go to, well, I still do have these strengths, even if I'm not perfect, even if I am not like at this certain point, whatever that I think I'm supposed to be in order to be able to help anyone else. But like, no, I actually still can help somehow, even though I'm not perfect. Somehow it still works.
I can help because I'm not perfect.
Exactly. Oh, thanks, Andy, for having me. This has been lovely.
Oh, it's been really, really great. Yeah, it's been a joyful hour. Thank you so much for bringing your calming and peaceful energy to my life. And where's the best place for people to connect with you and learn more about what you're up to?
Well, the simplest might be to just check out my website, valnelson.com, VALNELSON.com. And from there, you can click off to, like LinkedIn is the place that I'm the most active, but also my newsletter is the way to just get one of my newsletters a couple times a month. Newsletters. Trying to be more vulnerable, trying to be real. But LinkedIn is probably where I'm the most active. I probably am there a couple times a week. And I really like that space. There's something about it. So if you're on LinkedIn, I'd love for you to find me there too, Val Nelson.
Great.
On LinkedIn. Yeah, thanks.
Well, I will pop the links in the show notes and people can go and find you. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, thank you, Val.
Thanks, Andy.